Biomutant is my favourite game of the year so far. Made by a team of just 20 people at Experiment 101 in Sweden, you assume control of a strange little raccoon, fox, rabbit creature thing in a quest to save or destroy the Tree of Life in a post-apocalyptic world. The game is published by THQ Nordic, so thanks to them for this review code on PC. Defining exactly what genre Biomutant fits into is difficult because it meshes so many ideas into one, and it does a damn good job of it, but broadly speaking, it's an RPG. You build a custom character, juggle resources and equipment, improve stats, unlock upgrades, and make choices throughout the gameplay and narrative to craft a genuinely unique experience. RPGs can sometimes have weak combat that just boils down to number crunching and damage per second, but that couldn't be further from the truth here. Finding a combo of weapons that works well for your personal playstyle is much more important than which sword hits hardest. You'll be using melee weapons, guns, and psionics, which are basically magic powers, in combat that is more reminiscent of hack and slash games like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta than any traditional RPG. For close encounters, you'll swing big two-handed swords, heavy hammers, one-handed swords, or just your bare fists if you want to roleplay as Bruce Lee. Later, you unlock the ability to dual-wield one-handed swords, which opens up your repertoire of moves and playstyles even more. If tackling foes from afar is more your speed, guns are at your disposal with rifles, automatic rifles, shotguns, and pistols, the latter of which can once again be dual-wielded with an unlockable skill. The world of Biomutant is set in the far-flung future after humanity destroyed itself and the world due to corporate oversight and total disregard for the environment and the other creatures of the world. As a result, humans are long gone, but the effects of the apocalypse remain as animals have mutated in a number of ways into strange anthropomorphic creatures. The world is very spiritual and zen in an almost Studio Ghibli or fairy tale kind of way, with pro-environmental themes placed front and center. This is not dissimilar to a game like Breath of the Wild, where your mission is very simple, but it's more about you existing in this fantastic world and getting into your own adventures. You play as one of these creatures, which you create yourself in a bespoke character creation system. As opposed to assigning stats or moving aesthetic traits on sliders, Biomutant combines these two components into one. The 5 attributes of strength, agility, intelligence, vitality, and charisma all exist in an analog system which influences both core stats and the way your character actually looks in the world. The more you lean into one particular category, the more your Biomutant will take on those physical traits. For example, the more you build for strength, the bigger and bulkier you will become, but that will be at the expense of other attributes which will be smaller, like intelligence. High intelligence will give you a big old brain, high agility will make you slender and athletic, vitality will give you the gut of Henry VIII, and charisma will make you stand tall and proud. You also get to choose your fur pattern and color scheme, so jazz up your mutant as much as you like. Everyone knows anything goes in the apocalypse. When you start actually playing, there are areas where these physical characteristics can be tweaked without altering the underlying stats if you fancy something a little different. In addition to the dimensions of your Biomutant's biceps and your waistline width, you'll be able to choose from one of 6 races or breeds and 5 classes, with an additional class coming as a pre-order bonus or Day 1 DLC. These breeds all look slightly different as a starting point and spec nicely into specific playstyles, so pick one that works best for you. Primals are your sword-swinging, pistol-spinning guys who are your typical fighters. Dum-Dons are pretty strong, so are great for melee-focused players, but are glass cannons due to their lower vitality. Rex is your jack-of-all-trades type breed who can do a bit of everything, and this is the one I went with so I could be flexible. Hylers are your tanky boys with heavy armor and health. Fips are high intelligence and key energy, so if you're looking to go wild with psionic powers, this is the one for you. Finally, Murgles are similar to Primals, but are better at the non-combat focused stuff like bartering with traders and lucking out with good loot. I'll elaborate on loot a bit later, but just know that personally I really don't like loot grindy games, but the loot system in Biomutant is absolutely excellent and constantly rewarding. Every time you level up, you get to add a little more to one of these attributes, so you can lean harder into your current build or switch it up to something else you've been missing. Some weapons are also unusable unless you are high enough in one specific stat, so bear that in mind. You also get a skill point on each level up, which can be spent on upgrades like the aforementioned dual wielding for small swords and pistols, in addition to new combat moves or class-specific bonuses. Choosing your class is more important than your breed, as each has a specific series of unlockable traits that are locked off from the others. This will also determine your starting gear, though you will still be able to build most of the other stuff later. Deadeye, which is the class I chose, is your gunslinger class who focuses on pistols and rifles while still allowing enough strength for a decent melee build too. Commando is your dedicated ranged class for those who really want to stay back and ping off targets from afar. Psyphreak is your wizard or sorcerer type class, which focuses on special powers which can be used more frequently and to more devastating effect. Saboteur is a nimble, melee-focused Biomutant which gets the dual-wield ability from day 1. Finally, we have Sentinel, which is your heavy tanky class due to the automatic boost to armor. I was a Rex Deadeye so that I could enjoy a little bit of everything, but focus on pistols to play a cowboy-esque outlaw. If you want to be some all-powerful wizard of the wasteland, which was my second choice, pick Fip Psyphreak and torment the land with supernatural powers. These powers are acquired by spending Psy points, which can be earned by beating tough foes. Some of these are locked off until you have strong enough aura in either the light or dark paths, and just like Star Wars, the bad guys get all the coolest powers. These auras do not cannibalize each other, so you can have full light and full dark simultaneously. Aura is affected by your choices in the story and how you interact with characters. This morality system is pretty black and white. Selfish actions are bad, selfless actions are good, but the game still never feels critical of you if you're being bad. The first choice before you is as basic as going left or right, something totally arbitrary, but it teaches you the aura system in the simplest terms. That decision immediately affects a bunch of the following dialogue as NPCs discuss what kind of person you are, which is really interesting and adds a lot of replayability to an already deeply replayable experience. Sometimes the game directly calls attention to this with a brief devil angel moment where each aura tries to argue why their way is better. Find a prisoner in a camp, helping or abandoning him is up to you, and they will try to talk you in or out of it. Throughout the story, the game constantly beats you over your pointy-eared head that this is your adventure and your choices are what shape the world. RPGs often have the very best stories in all of gaming, albeit some of the most bonkers. The story of Biomutant, though, is very minor and hands-off compared to most RPGs, despite the huge emphasis on choice. Pretty much from the word go, the story objectives stay the same. You have 3 goals, and how you complete them is left up to you. The world tree is being destroyed by the 4 world eaters, enormous mutant beasts which require special tools to take down. You can either fight to save the tree or help kill it to destroy the world. Your second goal is to reconcile your character's past from before the game. A disaster destroyed your village, leaving you orphaned and alone with repressed memories of what really happened, but now's the time to uncover the truth. The third task is to do with the 6 disparate clans of the world. You can unite them all together to help save the world or push them apart in an all-out war for dominance. The choice is yours. Each clan has a slightly different belief system and sense of morality. Some are honor-driven and noble, some believe only the strong can exist and wish to eradicate the rest, and some are just kinda in the middle and want to do their own thing. You will ally with one of these tribes, which will put you in ill favor with their rival. Each tribe also comes with their own unique weapon, which is only obtained by getting them to join you or obliterating them entirely. The problem I had with this is that it's not particularly well explained and you have to make the choice without fully knowing all the options. I teamed up with the Myriad tribe because they were one of the first 2 that the game shows you, and they were the good option, which pissed off the Jagnies because they were the bad ones. All well and good. However, I hadn't met any of the other tribes in the story yet or had the opportunity to visit their areas. Holding back the decision of who to ally with until after you've had the chance to see all of them would have been much better and more meaningful because you have all the information. It's like ordering food at a restaurant but not realizing there's a whole separate menu of stuff you want, and now you're stuck with boring dry chicken while you enviously watch the other tables enjoy their steaks. This is definitely a gameplay first experience, and a fantastic experience at that, but for a game with so much emphasis on choice, I would have expected a bit more story content beyond just chatting with NPCs. Speaking of, the NPC dialogue is something that I think many of you will hate, but I thought it was really playful and charming. Since this is set in the future of our world where humans vanished long ago, none of these creatures speak English, or any earthly language for that matter. Instead, they all converse in literal gibberish, which is then interpreted by a narrator.
There have been rumors of a one-eyed Ronin seen outside the Great Wall, and he's happy to see it's true.
This narrator is wholesome and endearing and serves as a constant companion throughout your adventures, occasionally popping up as you explore to give you a bit of advice or to just chat. He regularly makes puns or silly jokes, but it never got to the point of being overbearing or annoying to me. I could though see this getting seriously irritating for some people, but it can be turned off in the settings. So many games copy features from each other, which isn't entirely a bad thing, but it can lead to games with half-baked versions of features done better in other titles. Crafting is one of those features that seems to show up everywhere, but with Biomutant, Experiment 101 has built the very best crafting system I have ever used. As I said before, you have a number of weapons at your disposal and each of them can be crafted from scratch. Throughout the game world, you'll be looting and scavenging for resources as one does in a post-apocalyptic setting. What's different here is that every single item is useful in some way and there are no weight limits, so you can pick up everything you find and you'll find a use for it at some point or just scrap it for more resources. Though it would be more convenient if I could immediately scrap items I find because I know I'm not going to need them rather than going through menus, but that's just a quality of life thing rather than an actual flaw. Each weapon starts with a base which determines what type it will be. From there, for melee weapons, you will add a handle and you're basically good to go. Some pieces allow for additional components on the blades such as spikes or saw blades which add to the weapon's overall damage output significantly. Since you're a small raccoon, fox, rabbit type thing, you're pretty little in this big wide world, so many ordinary objects make for decent weapons. You could end up repurposing the head of a toilet brush or a vacuum cleaner to a lethal new harbinger of death. Due to ranged weapons being more complex in their design, they require more components. Once again, you pick your base base to determine whether it will be a rifle, automatic rifle, pistol, or shotgun. Then you have a choice of stocks, sights, magazines, and muzzles. A game developed by 20 people with cute marsupial creatures as the main character just embarrassed the entire AAA space when it comes to weapon crafting. This game saw The Last of Us 2's flashy but ultimately very basic weapon upgrade system and took a golf club to it. A golf club made from a bent pipe, a bit of wood, with some scissors strapped to it. The amount of combinations of weapons for loadouts make things even more impressive. My personal favourite combo was 2 swords with 2 pistols, but 2-handers with rifles is just as fun. Each weapon you craft feels completely unique, even within the same type. You could have 2 pistols which behave entirely different, and then dual wielding the pair changes things up again. Have you made a hand cannon like a Magnum or something fully automatic closer to an SMG? And then there are status effects like radiation, fire, or electricity which change how a weapon behaves and are better suited to fight certain foes. If you stop liking a weapon or want to change it or use part of it for something else, you can, simply by dismantling it and starting again. The game is very pro-environment, and using recycling mechanics is a clever way to really hammer that home. Of course, that's using a hammer made of a toothbrush and a tin can. You will constantly be tweaking and retweaking your weapons as you find new parts that change everything about your playstyle. If you don't like something, you can destroy it for resources or sell it to merchants for something better. And then you add psionics to the mix and things get flipped on their head once more. 2 of the best powers I didn't even get until near the end. Levitate so I can float above the battlefield like Boba Fett, and telekinesis so when I need to reload I can just fling my enemies at each other. You do have infinite ammo, you just need to reload, and that can be done while slashing your sword or pinging off powers so your flow is never broken. Oh, and did I mention you get a little robot grasshopper as a sidekick? A sidekick who can unlock support abilities like shooting enemies, giving heals and buffs, or doubling as a glider. A sidekick that can be reskinned to look like a mouse among other things. The game constantly throws exciting new mechanics at you with a clear, fun first mantra. It never stops to think, is this too daft? Have we gone a bit too far? Few developers would have the balls or talent to pull off using a giant robot hand as a vehicle that can shoot from its fingertip, but Experiment 101 sure as hell did. In terms of vehicles, you get a few different ones which are specifically used to fight the World Eaters, and a couple can be customized. You get a mech known as a Mechton, and you can change parts like the head, shoulders, and chest. For example, mine has a giant mechanical duck head, and I couldn't be happier. Virtually every mechanic in the game, combat or otherwise, gives the player some way to make a choice to use it to their liking. On top of customizing the visuals of your Biomutant's body, there are several items of clothing to add to the mix. Unfortunately, these can't be crafted from scratch like your weapons, but some can be modified by strapping random junk to them for an armor boost. You get hats, masks, backpacks, tops, and trousers, though it seems a shame to wear a hat to cover up those adorable ears. On a side note, this game has such attention to detail on certain things that if you get wet, your Biomutant ears will flop and sag until they dry out and stand back up again. As with any good RPG, these clothes aren't just fashion and all come with their own stats which fit into your playstyle. Would you rather a little extra armor or slightly better crit percentage? Since the world of Biomutant is basically Twitter, a toxic apocalyptic disaster, some areas of the map are too hazardous to explore without strong enough resistances. You can adjust your starting resistances to fire, cold, biohazard, and radioactivity during the character creation process. That may be enough to get you in there without dying immediately, but you're gonna need a little help. When you first enter a hazardous area for the first time, a side quest will pop up pointing you to a way you can get something to protect yourself from the hazard. Up to 5 different outfits for different purposes can be saved at a time, so you can quickly swap to your fireproof suit so you don't burn your whiskers. In terms of performance, the game is pretty solid, though I did see a few brief but frequent fluctuations in frames. Nothing was ever too severe, but it is worth remembering that this is not a AAA budget game, so there is a little jankiness here and there. Some people hate that sort of thing, but some appreciate the charm of it, so it really depends on your personal tastes. All in all, it's been a quiet year so far, but as it stands right now, Biomutant is absolutely my game of the year. It has the best weapon crafting system I've ever used in any game. Again, I generally don't like games that endlessly inundate you with loot because most of it feels superfluous, but Biomutant always had something useful to offer that could change the way I looked at things. Like swinging fat blades around like an anime protagonist? Biomutant's got you. Feel like popping heads from a rooftop using a custom-built rifle with a huge crit chance and electricity damage? No problem. Wanna be every X-Man rolled into one and dominate the battlefield with your mind? Have at it, my friends. I played this every day for a week for the review, but if you can, you should really stretch it out. It's such a pleasant game with its romantic and spiritual approach to martial arts. It's probably the wildest chill-out game ever made. One of the only things I didn't love was the story, but I still wouldn't call it bad by any means. I just personally prefer games with a slightly meatier plot. You have big and small choices throughout the narrative, so if the story was thickened up a little, these could have been really powerful. While the story left me wanting, the gameplay more than makes up for it, and even after the credits rolled, I immediately hopped swapped back in with a new character and class. I had my eye on this one since it was announced, and it was all quiet for a while, but now it's finally out. Experiment 101 absolutely delivered. Thanks again to THQ Nordic for sending me the review code on PC. The game officially launches tomorrow on May 25th for PC, PS4, and Xbox One. Anyway, that's enough from me for now. I 100% recommend you buy Biomutant. I've been Henry Cooper. This has been Pretty Good Gaming. Bye for now.